Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. Okay. So hopefully y'all are in the right class. This is anatomy and physiology. Fall 2025, not summer. So, whoa. I don't know what that was. All right. So I believe we left off on directional terms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we can run through those again really quickly to get us like back in the groove. And then we'll move on. Okay. Oh, why did it do that? Oh, right, because I didn't confirm it. Okay. There we go. Technology has not been my friend today. So directional terms are going to be grouped in pairs of opposites, meaning if you can remember one, you can probably remember the other, right? So when you're going through and learning these, I strongly suggest like using your hands. I've always wanted to do like assignment says in class, there's like 10 point superior and natural, but we never seem to have time for it. So maybe the 12th, no, the semester's not paid supposed to stay in this class. But yes. So for packets, I will pretty much always have them printed out for you guys on Mondays. It's just because we didn't meet before we had planned, but I do have chapters 2 and 3 for you guys. So I'll give those out to you after break. So So when you talk about right versus left, you are always talking about your patient's right or your patient's left. Right? Because if you're standing next to your patient, like a lot of the time you're going to be standing next to your patient's bedside, right? If you are standing at the right of your patient, their right is the same thing as your right. Okay? But if you're standing at the foot of the bed, or if you're facing your patient, their right is on your left. So it's important to remember, right is the patient's right, left is the patient's left. Running down the center of your body, you have this thing called your midline, right? It looks kind of like middle. Something like that. All right, so it's midline runs down the middle of your body. That is what's going to divide your right and left. Next, moving towards the midline. So like this M word here. I don't know. Medial, mid, right? It goes towards the body's midline. Opposite of medial is going to be lateral. So lateral means away from the body's midline. Okay. Proximal and distal. Proximal is going to be closest to the point of origin. Right? Whereas distal further from the point of origin. So distal, I always think distal means distant. Okay. So distal means more distant from that point of origin, where the legs start. Morning, you should. So distal meaning distant. Okay. Further away from that point of origin, meaning where that limb starts. So on your leg, your limb starts at your hip. On your arm, it starts at your shoulder. Right? Because you're not always going to be standing with your arms out. Your patients aren't always going to be standing like this. Right? Sometimes they're going to have their arms out like this. You need to know where it is in relation to the point of origin. Next set. You have superior and inferior. Inferior got cut off. Oh, something I forgot to mention to you guys. I'll make the same deal with all my classes that I did last semester. If everybody passes the exam, I will bring in cookies for y'all. You need a packet. So, except for the final, because I honestly guys are for the final. No. But costume cookies are pretty clear. I'll do it. I'm a big fan of costume cookies. So, incentives. I did have like 2 sections that everybody passed the final, but I didn't see it after. So I haven't had any takers yet, but help each other out, right? Okay. So superior packet. Ma'am. So superior means above, right? If somebody on the work chain is your supervisor, they're above you in the chain of command. So superior above. Inferior is going to be below. Okay. So downwards. The next 2, anterior and posterior. Anterior and ventral mean the same exact thing. You need to know both words. Anterior and ventral. So it means towards the front of the box. Ventral technically means towards the belly. Anterior means towards the front, but it's the same thing. Okay. So know both of those words interchangeably. Posterior is going to be the opposite of anterior. So towards the back. The other word posterior, dorsal. Man, I can't talk today. Today's like the first day I ever drove in Chicago rush hour traffic, and like, it's a nightmare. So I like moved here from Brooklyn, so it's like, oh, it won't be that bad. Chicago's worse. So posterior is towards the back of the body. Okay. Superficial and deep. If you say somebody's superficial, they are only interested in looks, right? Beauty's only skin deep, whatever they say, right? Superficial, you are talking about what's near the body's surface. Deep is going to be away from the body's surface. Okay? So we talk about this when we talk about burns, which is going to be when we do the integumentary system. Your integumentary system is the first system we're going to cover after exam 1. Right, so it's superficial. Week 3. It should be day 2. I'm waiting on confirmation. So I'm hoping I get that today, but we'll see. It should be week 3 though. It's been week 3 the past 3 semesters. So superior above, inferior below. Superficial on the surface, deep is away from the body surface. Anterior towards the front, posterior towards the back. As you're learning them, I use my hands a lot. I recommend like using your hands a lot, but whatever works for you.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So on the diagram, like the one on the arm,
I think it's distal and proximal, if I'm remembering. Yeah. So proximal and distal. So proximal is going to be closer to the shoulder. Distal is going to be further in. So on this diagram, it has it on your legs.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's the same thing if you do it on your arm.
because there's one for the legs too.
Yeah, there is. It repeats,
Oh,
but they both mean the same thing.
okay. What about the one that?
Anterior and posterior. Like you mean this one.
The midline?
Oh, this one. So midline. So you have medial and lateral because there's like a line in there. Theoretically. Sometimes like my diagrams aren't exactly what's in the book because I try to like do it black and white since your packets are black and white, but all right. So the other thing we need to talk about in terms of like, I don't know, like things that you use for charting. I'm blanking on the word that I usually use, but that's okay. That's switch my mind quicker. Okay, so we're gonna talk about planes. The way that I like to explain plane, think of like a guillotine, you know, that thing from the French Revolution where it like dropped the blade straight down, decapitated whatever unfortunate aristocrat was stuck in the head. Right? So, same thing for planes. Okay. Now, it is very important to have an idea of what anatomical position is because it's important when you put it in the guillotine. I stuck my fruit in the guillotine. What kind of fruit do you think it is? Apple, what else? Pear, what else? I've heard cucumber, star fruit. Cucumber?
Yeah, that's
It could be. You know, it's not a cucumber.
Right.
But I have heard cucumber and like I could see it. I don't know, creatively. But if I stick it in like this, right? You can very clearly see that it's a pear. Okay, so same thing with planes. Sometimes you need to get like different views of certain organs. Right? So that is why we talk about planes. It comes into play a lot when you're talking about imaging. And even if you guys aren't the ones doing imaging, at some point when you're charting, you will come across it. So, starting with sagittal, okay? The sagittal plane, when you are learning these, the best recommendation I have, take your hands, just make your hands go in the direction of the planes. Okay, it's gonna look really funny doing it, but I promise you it's gonna help you learn. So your sagittal plane goes right down your nose. Okay. It is going to divide your body into right and left sides. Now, with the sagittal plane, with all of the planes, all right, they're not stuffed where they are drawn on this. A lot of the time, if you see a sagittal plane, they're going to be drawn like this, but your sagittal plane can be here, it can be here, it can be here, okay? That's just to say you have this like flat sheet, right, that can move side to side. Now, if it is right in the middle, like right down your nose, it is called the mid-sagittal plane. So when you're learning this, when you see a mid-sagittal plane on your exam or whatever it might be, you don't need to memorize the whole sagittal of what it means, okay? It literally has the sagittal in there, right? So if you are like, I know this is the sagittal plane that divides into right and left, but I don't see the word, it's there, okay? It just might say mid-sagittal. That just means it runs through the middle. A lot of the time you're going to see it in organs in the head or the pelvic cavity. So when you see like, I don't know, I like this. That looks like a Simpson. You're a really bad Simpson, but yeah. When you see this view, okay? Oh, sorry. When you see this view, that is a sagittal view. We'll do check-in in the middle. Whatever, it's fine. It's the first week. No. Grace was being on time. Fine. Transverse. So transverse is going to run flat. Something like this. Okay. Runs through your eyes, runs with your mouth, whatever it might be. All right. Your transverse plane is going to divide your body into upper and lower portions. You're going to see it a lot of the time drawn right through your belly. I don't know. When I'm learning it, I put it up here. So, because again, planes can move, right? So this is going to divide your body into superior and inferior portions. Superior means what? Upper, inferior, below, right? The other word for transverse that you guys should know, horizontal. Okay, so the transverse plane is also going to be called your horizontal plane. It runs horizontally. A lot of the time you're going to see this used in CT, so computerized tomography. I bet you're never going to need to know what CT stands for in this class, but whenever you see imaging of like the scanning of the stomach, you see a lot in there. Okay, so transverse, horizontal. Next, you have your frontal plane. Okay. Your frontal plane looks like elephant ears. Look like this. Okay. Frontal plane is going to divide your body into anterior and posterior portions. Anterior is what? In front. What's the other word for anterior?
Ventral.
Ventral.
Oh, yeah.
Anterior means the same thing as ventral. Front of the body. What's the other word for posterior? Dorsal. Dorsal means what? Behind, back of the body. Okay. It is also going to be called the coronal plane. There's a frontal plane, coronal plane. Let's go better. So frontal plane / coronal plane. All right. Coronal literally means crown in like Latin. I'm pretty sure it's Latin. Coronal means crown. You're dropping your guillotine down through your crown. Okay. You're gonna see it a lot in illustrations of like your abdominal and thoracic cavity. So this guy here. If I were to sketch this, this would be the frontal plane. Okay. So I have my nice little summary slide. Apparently my PowerPoint does not like the word inferior because it also got cut off on here. You guys do not need to know longitudinal and you don't need to know axial. I just forgot to take those off. But the ones that are on the other slides, okay. The superior versus inferior. Okay. I also have this diagram. I just want to point out, so a lot of the time, so what I do before like I teach is I like make sure that Dr. A's PowerPoint's in my lineup. And I know she's like a much more visual person than I am. So if she has like different diagrams than I like to use, I include them for you guys. So a lot of the time you're gonna see like 2 or 3 slides on the same thing. It's just because I'm putting it in a different way so that like whatever works best for you, you have access to, right? If it's more confusing for you to think about it this way, and you like the like crown analogy, you can use that. You know what I mean? It's just whatever makes sense to you guys. So your coronal plane, you can think of it like sliced bread, right? Goes right down the front of the lobe. Horizontal plane, hamburger bun, and then sagittal plane. Okay. Now, this is something that's a little bit new this semester. Okay. We're gonna do like more ones integrations. So we're gonna try and like include things that are more like directly applicable to nursing. You guys do not need to know lateral, and you don't need to know sims. Right? Now, I like this because it has like nice little, I don't know, rhyming things, but I can get the picture more clear. So supine, the person is on their spine. Prone, away from that tailbone, meaning that they're like lying face down. Fowler's is going to be sitting up. I have seen, so I don't remember which section asked me about this, but somebody asked me like if Fowler's was supposed to be like knees up. Doesn't matter from what I read. Okay. It's just that like the person's back is elevated. Okay. Trendelenburg is going to be flat with your head below your feet. Okay. So I believe they use this in like to like prolong or not prolong, delay childbirth or whatever, but I don't know. I saw it on a TV show once. So Okay, so if you are laying on your stomach, what is that? Prone. Away from that tailbone. What about on your spine? Supine. Supine spine. With your feet above your head? Finland bird. My spelling is atrocious. I'm gonna warn you guys now. I think that's right-ish. Sitting up, Bowlers. Okay. Like I said, don't log into the gauge, so you don't have to worry about this. Okay, what term means away from the tail, or sorry, away from the midline? Lateral. What's the opposite of lateral? If it's away from the midline, what term means towards the midline? Medial. What plane divides the body into upper and lower? Transverse.
Oh, wait, you said upper and lower half?
Upper and lower.
Yes. I didn't.
Okay. What is the other word for transverse? Horizontal. Sagittal plane. What does the sagittal plane do?
Oh, from left to right.
Left and right. What is the other word for coronal plane? Are you just fun?
Yes.
Okay, great. The coronal plane is called what? Frontal. Frontal divides you into what? Front and back. Sorry, what? Yes. So front and back, right? What are the official words for front and back?
Posterior and anterior.
Posterior and anterior. What are the other two?
Ventral.
Ventral, dorsal. I need to like restart the annotation thing. Okay. Mid-sagittal. What is mid-sagittal divide? But what does it divide into? Left and right, right? It's the same exact thing as the sagittal. It's just in the middle. Okay. And these MCQs, I believe, are all on the PowerPoint. So if you guys are like reviewing and you want to go through them again, more than welcome to. Okay. What's another word for the coronal plane? Frontal. We already did it, so I'm not gonna like spend too much time on it. Okay. Body regions. I have to find my packet because there was a couple. We skipped the quadrants for right now because the way that the formatting is better to skip it and come back. These are the new packets I just printed. This is chapter 3. Does anybody have a packet that has writing on it?
I do, yeah. This one? It's
That has like, I forgot the name to it. Before I copy. Oh, yeah, no, that's a copy one. There was an original one somewhere, that I like had 4 terms and I couldn't remember the 4th term. Okay, there's a 4th one that I'll write on the screen once I remember which one it is that's short. Okay. I used these packets last semester and nobody pointed out to me that there's some terms missing from my coloring page. So. Okay, so you guys are responsible for knowing all the regions, but there's a ton of them, right? Like you guys have a lot to learn. So I'm just gonna go through the ones that I think are like significant, which is a lot of them, admittedly, but like it does cut out like 10-ish regions. So it'll help you if you're doing muscles, if you're doing bones, when you get to like nursing practice, so like when you're in funds and you're talking about injection sites. Knowing these is really gonna help. Okay. So frontal means forehead. Okay. You have a frontal bone, you have a frontalis muscle. So knowing frontal is gonna help you later on. Nasal is pretty straightforward, right? Nasal spray goes in your nose, nasal region goes in your nose, yeah. I emailed it out on Friday. So, nasal region, nose. Oral region, mouth. Was that? Yeah, oral I wrote them. Yeah, I'm so mad at myself. I put it down somewhere. Like that. So, oral region means mouth. Okay, so if you take something orally, it means you are taking it by mouth. Okay. You do have a muscle called your orbicularis oris. So knowing oral is going to help. Don't worry about knowing stuff out. Genuinely comes up like maybe one time. Don't worry about it. Okay. Orbital. Orbital region is your eye. It can also be called your optic. OPTIC. Region. So orbital, optic. Oh, right. I need to restart this so that it stops like delaying. Okay. Yes, I did. Okay. So frontal, oral, orbital. Like if you see an ophthalmologist, you're looking at your eyes, right? Buccal region. Buccal means cheek, right? Your mouth. You have a muscle in here. It's called your buccinator. So it'll help you when you get to muscles. Other than that, it's okay. Cervical is very important. Cervical always comes up. You are not talking about the cervix. You are talking about your neck. Okay? So your vertebral column, right? Your spinal cord, or not your spinal cord, but like the thing that the spinal cord is inside it. Okay? You have different regions of it. Cervical is the neck region. So knowing this is really going to help you when you get to talking about the spinal cord, talking about the vertebral column. Because when we talk about the spinal cord, we're going to talk about the different nerve regions. Okay? So cervical is really important for that. Sternal. Okay? This is your breastbone. If you know what your sternum is, you already have a leg up. But sternal, sternum, breastbone. Okay? Deltoid. You're gonna give injections in the deltoid region quite a bit, right? The upper arm. Actually, I don't know if LPNs do injections, do they? I don't know. Honestly, not a nurse. So, but if you're charting that somebody was given an injection, may or may not be by you, it's gonna be in your deltoid region if it's in your shoulder region, right? You have to switch. Connect. It's a dead end. I think it's open. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay. Oh, can someone grab my charger?
Yeah.
Oh. Is it okay if I unplug my phone? Or not my phone, it's your phone. All right.
It's cool. It's cool.
So, these are dead too. Okay, I might not end up using your guys' recording. I might have to use another section. All right, we'll see. See how this goes. Okay, so sternum. Deltoid, you were talking about your shoulder. You have a muscle here called your deltoid muscle. Okay.
I know, I was gonna let you know. On our, so we just gonna write it there. We're missing frontal, nasal.
Don't worry about nasal. Nasal's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I knew I was missing one. I know oral and cervical I wrote at the bottom there. That's not really on here. Deltoid's on here. Frontal's not. Frontal's the one that I forgot. I found 4 last class. So write down frontal. The I is on there. It's orbital. You can also write optic. Is it not on here? No, it's not. Just kidding. Okay. So frontal and optic. I'll send you guys like an updated list.
It says IC on ours, OTIC, is that? what
It's a different thing.
Oh, it's okay,
OTIC is your ear.
okay.
OPTIC is your eye. The ear is going to be on like the next book.
Okay.
So, armpit region, your axillary region. If you get crutches, right? You have nerves called your axillary nerve, and crutches can push on that nerve and cause like numbness down your arm. So axillary region, armpit region. Brachial. You have a bunch of muscles in your arm that have the word brachial in them. So if you can learn that brachial means arm right now, you're set up for success later on. Okay. So you have like your brachioradialis, you have your brachialis, you have your biceps brachii. All of those are in your arm. So brachial just means arm. Anti-brachial, you're talking about your forearm. But if you can just remember brachial means arm, you're probably fine because you can find the word brachial in there, right? Antecubital, the reason why this is important, IVs go here, right? You get IVs in the antecubital region all the time. So antecubital, pretty important. Okay, I'm going to skip over antebrachial, like I said. Carpal region, if you have carpal tunnel syndrome, right? Like, I used to get carpal tunnel when I was bartending and typing, stuff like that, right? You're using your wrists in a weird motion quite a bit, okay? So if you're using your hands all the time, it causes this tendon in here to get inflamed and push on those nerves and cause numbness. So you see it a lot with like people that work in offices or like I said, if you're doing like that repetitive motion, like you're bartending or something like that, you'll see carpal tunnel active quite a bit. You can skip palm and digits, like they're good to know, but like, I mean, palm, it's pretty straightforward, right? Like you want to be efficient. Femoral region, your thigh. You have a femur up here, okay? So your femoral region is your thigh. Your femur is that bone that's in there. Patellar region, this is talking about the front of your knee. Specifically, there's a different word for the back of your knee, okay? So the patellar region is the front of your knee specifically. Abdominal is pretty straightforward, right? Your abdominal region, so your abdomen region. Oh, I forgot tarsals, sorry. Okay. And then your tarsal is going to be your ankle. Right, so your carpals are your wrist, your tarsals are your ankle. That'll come in handy when you're learning bones because you have your carpals and your metacarpals and then you have your tarsals and your metatarsals. Okay, so these are the ones that I think are like the most relevant and important. Like I said, there's a lot of them, but like, I don't know, it'll help focus a little bit, I guess. Cuts out like maybe 10 that you'll learn eventually if you need to, but.
So you gonna post that one?
Yeah, I'm gonna post like a list for you guys. Like when I send out my like legal emails, if there's like any corrections to the packets, I usually like type it out and I'm like, hey, don't forget to include this, whatever, so. I don't know where it saves, but I'll find it later. Okay. So I just do that. So moving on to the back. If I can find my clipboard. So moving on to the back. Okay. Like I said, OTIC, that is not a typo. That is talking about your ear. All right. Occipital, the back of your head. It's going to come into play when we talk about the brain, and it's going to come into play when we talk about the bones. There's an occipital bone. You have an occipital lobe. Scapular. Scapular is going to be talking about your shoulder blades. I always call them your wing bones, but shoulder blades. Okay. Vertebral column, that is going to be talking about your spine. So the vertebrae are the bones that cover your spine, right? So your vertebral column is that whole thing. At the very bottom of your spine, well, it's part of your spine. So knowing these regions is going to help you. Like, what's the medical term for neck? The neck. Cervical, right? So you have part of your spine that is your cervical spine. You have cervical vertebrae. Okay. The lower back, that is your lumbar region. So like, if you hear like something has lumbar support, right? Supporting your lower back. Sacral. So another part of your vertebral column. So if you guys start getting familiar with these terms now, right? It's not going to be the first time you see them when we start going through this skeletal system. Gluteal. Gluteal, you're talking about the buttocks. Okay, so you have gluteus maximus, minimus, medius, all in the butt. Popliteal, like I said, right? Popliteal is going to be the back of your knee. Okay. These are the ones I would focus on for the back. So that cuts out another 4 fingers. Okay. Like I said, it doesn't trim it down a whole bunch, but no, that's better than nothing, right? Okay. And we are going to come back to abdominal quadrants. I didn't forget. It's just a little bit later in the PowerPoint after we talk about cavities. Okay. Medical term for armpit. Axillary. There we go. Axillary. What does buccal mean? Cheek. The way that I always remember buccal, I think that's the right way to spell cheek. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. I kept like going back and forth between an A and an E last class, but yeah, I think that's cheek. Buccal. So there's a horn called a bugle, right? You have to use your cheeks to like blow into the bugle horn. So bugle sounds kind of like bugle. Gluteal. What is gluteal? But I know I didn't highlight this one. Where are your mammary glands?
Your chest.
Your breasts specifically. The reason I didn't highlight it because we don't do the reproductive system outside of Pan-Open in this class. So like it'll come up like at the end of the semester when you do Pan-Open, but like you haven't to worry about it.
Alright, you said this PowerPoint, you already sent it to us or not?
Yeah. I sent it on Friday.
In email?
Yeah.
So let's just chapter 1 and 2.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, Brightspace is like a shared page between all the instructors. So we don't put the PowerPoint on there because there's like slight differences between our PowerPoints. So. And I will send an email tomorrow with chapter 3 so that you guys have that ahead of class for Thursday. It just like wouldn't let me include chapter 3 for some reason on the last week's email. Not for some reason. There was already a bunch of shit attached to it.
You got it.
Okay. Medical term for, let's go with the front of the patella. What's the back of the knee? Popliteal. Where's your carpals? Wrist. What about your ankle? What's your ankle called? Tarsals. See, it's not that bad. You guys are all gonna do well. The IG line is placed where? Antecubital. We already talked about the other one, so I'm not gonna go through them again. All right. Next, we are going to talk about body cavities. Okay. Now, each cavity is not necessarily mutually exclusive. Okay. So when you learn these body cavities, I want you to think of them as like Russian nesting dolls. All right. Because you have one inside another inside of a big one. All right. So the cavities are going to nest inside of one another. You have two like big ones. You have your ventral cavity and your dorsal cavity. What direction is ventral? Front. Right? Dorsal is what?
Back.
Back. So we're going to start with the dorsal cavity just because there's only two things in it, so it's way easier. Okay. So starting with your dorsal cavity, you have two parts to it. You have your cranial cavity, which is going to have your brain. And then you have your spinal cavity, which has your spinal cord. Super easy, right? They sound exactly like what they have. Next, you have your ventral cavity, which is going to be completely separate from your dorsal. Okay. So dorsal cavity only has these two sections. All right. Your ventral cavity, on the other hand, has a bunch of subdivisions. All right. Now, running in between the upper and the lower parts, and you have your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is a really important muscle for breathing. We're going to see it a lot. It's like this dome-shaped muscle that runs in the middle of your body. All right. The ventral cavity is the only one shown on this, so I like to use this diagram to explain it better, just because I think it's more straightforward. Okay. So your diaphragm is going to divide into your thoracic cavity and your abdominopelvic cavity. Okay. So sometimes you're going to hear thoracic cage. They're just talking about the rib cage. Okay. Abdominopelvic is really easy though, right? It's your abdominal cavity and your pelvic cavity. So you just add those two words together and you get abdominopelvic. So your abdominal cavity has like your digestive organs. So things like your stomach, your intestines, your liver, that's all going to be in your abdominal cavity. Okay. Your pelvic cavity is really going to have your like reproductive organs. So like your uterus is going to be in your pelvic cavity. So abdominal, pelvic, abdominal, and pelvic. Your thoracic cavity, on the other hand. So I told you, thoracic cage, right? So you're talking about your rib cage, things that are inside your rib cage. It's going to be two divisions. You're going to have your mediastinum, which has your heart. Okay? Mediastinum, the way that I remember it, media kind of looks like middle, spinum kind of looks like sternum. Like, it's a stretch. If it helps you remember, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. It's all right. And then you have your pleural cavity, which is going to have your lungs. Okay? So like I said, it's one thing inside of another. Now, If we ask you, which cavity is your heart in?
The right. It's not the right.
Mediastinum. If I ask you where your heart and your lungs are,
And that's the right.
yes, that would be the thoracic. Okay. And chances are on an exam, we will not put what cavity is the heart in and include the mediastinum as well as the thoracic, right?
So if it's on the test and they ask where the heart is, you're gonna put median start.
Mediastinum,
Only when they ask where the heart and the lung is it thoracic.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So as you are learning these, learn which cavities are inside of another and what organs they contain. Now, on this picture, right? Like this side view here, you don't see the mediastinum. Okay. So I just like to take this opportunity to point out we are drawing a 3D structure in 2D diagrams. Okay. So sometimes one organ is going to cover another. That does not mean that organ does not still exist, right? So your mediastinum is still there. It's just covered by the lungs. So think of it as like looking at a hamburger, right? If you look at the hamburger from the side, you can see the hamburger. If you look at the hamburger from the top, the buns are going to cover it. You guys do not need to know the specific subdivisions of the mediastinum. This is just to point out it still exists. If you like to read things, this is straight from your book. It says the same thing we just discussed. It's just typed out. The front of the body is referred to as which cavity? Ventral. What's the back of the body? Dorsal. The other two are planes. Okay, so this is where we're going to go back to those abdominal quadrants. So I know it jumps around just a little bit, but page 6. Okay. So because your abdominal pelvic cavity is so big, we subdivide it. Okay. We divide it into either regions or quadrants. You guys do not need to worry about knowing regions. Okay. There are 9 regions. Don't worry about them. All right. Learn your quadrants. Okay. What does quad mean? 4. There's 4 quadrants. It's really easy. Okay, they're not named like the epigastric or anything like that. Okay, it's literally just right upper, left upper, right lower, left lower. Okay, so right upper, right lower, left lower. We want you guys to know the locations of 5 organs, and that's it. Okay. So, starting with your liver, something I always like to point out. I don't know, blue is kind of easy to see. Your liver goes like this, right? It is not just in one quadrant. So when we say what quadrant is the liver in, we are talking about the quadrant that the liver is like mostly in. Okay? So your liver is going to be found in your right upper quadrant. Your gallbladder. Now your gallbladder is super closely associated with your liver. It's this little like green coin purse you find under your liver. So anytime you hear the gallbladder, just think liver. It's in the same spot. It's tucked right underneath it. So that is also going to be found in your right upper quadrant. Now you have your spleen, which is going to be found in your left upper quadrant. The spleen is really important for like getting rid of old blood cells, stuff like that. But like, we don't talk about the spleen too much in this class. So really, like, you guys just need to know the location of it, right? Your appendix, for some reason, this diagram doesn't have it, right? Your appendix is just this little like dangly thing at the bottom of your large intestine. So. Okay, so your appendix just has like this little like, it's about the size of your pinky finger. So if you have appendicitis, this is what's getting inflamed. Right, so that is going to be found in your right lower quadrant. So the way that they're abbreviated, side, upper, lower, and then just your Q for quadrant. Your stomach, I forgot to circle the stomach on this slide, but your stomach is also going to be found in your left upper quadrant. Which means your left lower quadrant, there's nothing really important there. It's just kind of there. Well, I mean, okay, there are very important organs in there. I shouldn't say that, but like, we don't have you guys know. All right. So these are the ones I want you guys to learn for the quadrants. Why do you think knowing your quadrants is important?
Where certain things is for certain symptoms or.
Exactly. So if a patient comes in, right, and they're like, it hurts really bad right here, chances are that the problem's not with your lungs, right? The reason I always use the appendix as the example is because the appendix is really cool. There's a specific point on your body called McBurney's point. And like, if you come in with pain right here, the doctor's literally gonna like poke you there, and it's really, really painful. And they're like, you know what, that's appendicitis. Because it's a very specific spot. But knowing these is really important because it can help guide you like with what the patient needs, you know? The heart is located in mediastinum. Okay. Where's the, there we go. Okay, the mediastinum is inside of which cavity?
Thoracic.
Thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity is inside of which cavity? Which one? Ventral cavity. Right? So your body is divided into the ventral and the dorsal. The ventral is going to be divided into your thoracic and what?
I didn't get that. There's only that thoracic. Did you?
Abdominal pelvic. Abdominal pelvic. Your abdominal pelvic cavity is divided into your abdominal and pelvic.
You said that now, yeah, okay. And then you said that there were, wait, what was that?
Thoracic cavity is divided into pleural and mediastinum.
Is that just? Because I was trying to write it the way you wrote it, but now I'm getting confused. You have this right.
Yeah, so your mediastinum is where your pelvis, pleural cavity is where your lungs are. Abdominal digestive system, pelvic is down here.
But this one.
No, that one's
saying, yeah.
this is abdominal pelvic.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just like a side view of what we talked.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What abdominal quadrant? Right upper. What else do you find in your right upper? Gallbladder. What about in your left upper quadrant? What's up here? Spleen and stomach. What about your left lower quadrant? What's here?
I said right or
There's not to know. Left lower quadrant's all by itself. It's hollow inside. It's not actually hollow, but like for our purposes, there's nothing here. What about the left middle quadrant? That's not a thing. That does not exist. Okay. What about right lower quadrant? Appendix. See, you're not that bad.
It's not. But we just call it the like you do the division when you start dividing them up, like when you were saying ventral, those are the line. It gets a little confusing from the diagram that we have because it's like all the lines and we didn't know that's what it meant.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like I want to give you guys the opportunity to fill in the things, you know what I mean? Like, that's the whole point of doing the notes, is that you're like writing it down. But like, sometimes the lines are like wonky, for lack of a better term. So, I don't know. Sometimes I can find like better diagrams on Google. Sometimes it's just, we gotta go with what FA25 gives us, so. You question? Oh. Sorry, I saw it over the corner of my eye. I didn't know if you had your hand raised. Okay. Ow. Okay. Last thing for chapter 1, and then we will go on break. Homeostasis. So we're back on not chapter 8 now. This last part of chapter 1, okay, page 8. Homeostasis is going to be defined as maintaining a dynamic equilibrium. What do I mean by that? If you are homosexual, right, you are interested in somebody that is the same sex. So homo means what? Same. Okay. So homeo, same-ish. Kind of. It's pretty similar, right? So homeo, homo, same. Okay. What it means is that you are trying to stay within a certain range. So this dynamic part, nothing in your body stays like exactly where it needs to be all the time, right? Like, for example, your temperature is not going to stay at 98.6 always, but you want to have it around 98.6. We'll talk more about temperature in a minute. So that's what that dynamic equilibrium means, okay? You are trying to stay within, like, around this part, this point, but like, sometimes you're going to be a little above, sometimes you're going to be a little bit below. So dynamic means change of equilibrium. You are staying, like, around where you need to be, okay? This is just more text about that. Basically, you want to be on a balance beam, you want to stay centered. So, homeostatic regulation. In order to try and keep things in this like narrow range, all right, you have 3 things. You have a receptor, which is going to receive the information. Okay. So a receptor is going to receive information. The control center is then going to get that message from your receptor and process that information. Okay, so it's going to receive the message and process information from the receptor. A lot of the time, this is your brain. Your brain is taking in that information. It's deciding what needs to happen next. Okay, it is then going to send that signal down to your effector. An effector, okay, which is going to respond to the signal. So the effector is going to cause an effect. So one of the examples I always like to use, okay, glucose, blood glucose, right? Everybody knows about diabetes. So when you eat something, right, your food is going to get broken down into like different components, one of which is glucose, the sugar. Okay. Your body is then going to absorb that sugar. It's going to go into your bloodstream, and something in your bloodstream is going to tell your brain, hey, we need to get this sugar into like whatever we need to get it into to be used. Okay, so it needs to go into your cells can use it, right? So the brain gets that signal, it sends that information down to the pancreas, and it's like, you need to make some insulin so that we can get this stuff into the cell, right? So the pancreas is going to make that insulin, and that insulin is going to let it come into the cell, right? Now, these processes occur when your homeostasis is out of check. So if you don't have that insulin being produced, okay, or like, there's not enough being produced or something like that, right? Your blood glucose is not staying within that narrow range that you need it to. So people that are diabetics, they take their blood glucose all the time to make sure it is around, I think, 100 to 180. I want to say off the top of my head. I could be wrong, but I think you want your blood glucose to be between 100 and 180. If it's way too high, you give yourself insulin. If it's too low, you drink orange juice or something, right? So homeostasis is making sure, are you kidding?
No.
Okay. So homeostasis is making sure things stay within that range. Okay. The other really stereotypical example that we use, temperature, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay. Now, homeostasis has two types, right? You have negative feedback, which is the most stereotypical example. This is when the effector opposes the stimulus. Okay, so we just talked about that with diabetes. So blood glucose. Diabetes happens when it doesn't work. Okay, so blood glucose. Another example we're going to talk about. Temperature. Blood pressure. Another example. Pretty much everything you can think of in your body. Okay, except for the two positive feedbacks, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay. The way that negative feedback works, it is not just a straight line. You constantly have things getting high and low like this, and you want to stay around this point. And I have a diagram to show that on the next slide, so we'll come back to this. The other type of homeostatic regulation is going to be positive feedback. Okay, this happens when the effector reinforces the stimulus. What I mean by this, okay, I think of it like the snowball effect. So the way that I like to explain this, it's like when you're in a fight with your significant other, right? Like one small thing can set it off. Like my big thing is like moving my phone charger. I feel like take it off the side of the bed and then I put it in the living room. And there's 500 phone chargers in the house. I'm like, I don't know why you need this particular one. Because then you go lay down and like, my phone charger's not there, you know? So like you start yelling at them about the phone charger. And then it's like, oh, and by the way, you didn't put the dishes in the sink or you didn't do this. And then you just start like going, right? And then you bring up stuff from like last week or like 2 years ago, right? It's that snowball effect. You start getting mad about something as small as the phone charger, and then suddenly you're just like mad about their entire existence. Okay? That is what positive feedback is. All right. One small thing sets it off, and then it just keeps adding to it, right? You get angry, so you make yourself angrier, and that thing makes you even angrier, and you just keep going. There are two examples of this in your body. Everything else is negative feedback. Okay? You have childbirth. And blood clotting. Now, the reason why this is not as common as negative feedback, okay? If positive feedback is left unchecked, right? It just goes on forever and it is really bad. So people that have like clotting disorders, okay? It's not good. Positive feedback has like a definitive endpoint. At some point, you are going to give birth. It will end, right? Some point, you're going to stop bleeding. The way that I remember the two examples, they're both positive things up top, right? It's a good thing when you give birth. It's a good thing when you stop bleeding. Both positive examples. Okay? So negative feedback opposes the stimulus, positive feedback reinforces. Now to explain negative feedback a little bit better. Okay. Temperature is a big one of this. When you're like cooking, right? You have your oven going, you can hear your oven clicking on and off. Mm-hmm. This is negative feedback in your oven. Okay. You set your oven to 400 degrees, it is never truly at 400 degrees. All right. So what happens is sometimes the oven gets a little too hot. Okay. Let's connect. Oh. I'm not re-recording this entire lecture for 2 seconds. Okay. Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, I think it's good. All right, so sometimes it gets a little too hot. Your oven is going to click off, okay? It's going to turn on, and it's going to let it drop down a little bit. So maybe it gets down to like 395 or something. Whatever, like, if the thing is set to, the range. Okay. Once it gets too low, the oven's like, oh, we got to kick back on. So it turns back on and it reheats until it gets to this next point where it's like, oh, it's a little too hot. Like, let's shut off in for a second. Okay. You can take that temperature 100 different times and it is going to give you 100 different answers. Like, obviously, some of them are going to overlap. The idea is you want it to go around this set point. So whatever you set your oven to, it's going to try and be around that point. Okay, so in your body, right? If you get hot, you start to sweat. You get cold, you start to shiver. All right? So you're oscillating around that set point. You're going back and forth around it. This is the diagram from your book if you prefer to use that. It's the same thing. Homeostasis refers to the body in what? Balance, right? We're on a balance beam. The body uses what type of feedback mainly? Negative. What are the two examples of positive? Childbirth and blood clotting. All right. So we will go ahead and go on break. When we come back from break, I'll pull up FA Davis's site and we'll go through that really quickly to get everybody set up on their textbook. Hopefully get everybody set up on their textbook. Okay, so something with the textbook access codes. One section got their phone number as their textbook access codes. So IT sent me another set of access codes for them, which I sent out, and it turns out that some of those access codes had already been given to other students. Okay. So if you get an error message that says that this textbook access code has already been used, send me an email. Okay. Because I'm putting together a list of who needs a new access code. I'm hoping to get the new access codes today. For now, you can just use the PowerPoints to fill out your packets, but that's why there's some error messages popping up. Okay. Cool. If you didn't find Come on, man. Where'd you go? You're gonna go to FA25.com. Now mine looks a little bit different from your guys's. Okay? On your website, there's like an orange bar up here that says like activate your access code. That's where you're gonna type that code that I sent you guys. Okay? This is the book that should pop up. Okay? So if you haven't had a chance to do it while I'm passing out these packets, try to do it now. Like I said, if you get an error message that the code's already been used, shoot me an email. Okay. Yes. So you need to know like the definition. So like, for example, if I were to simulate, your knee is blank your foot, would it be like superior? So like that's kind of how the last one. No, so it's just FAA. This is like FAA just again. Yes. So go ahead and log in exactly.
Can you show us the panel that's the activity?
Yeah. Yes.
Mom just said the right thing, mom.
That your cards are gonna do it. Oh, just remove your thing, right? Yeah, I know, that's why I was. There's a little, I have to give time. So, I guess 20 days. Yes. Yeah. I'm feeling like. Because I'll get here. I don't No, everybody to art books. I mean, I think that he's. It really does what it's just me. And I can be there. It's a little bit. But I'm going so make sure you're on that.
It's better, it's better, I'm not saying. Yeah, you don't really drive it. Yeah, it's the other person. Like how we don't tell me. Like my house. I don't forget. I put it like it's something. It's never is. It's not a good time. There's no saying like I'm
Right, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, she wanted to look the whole year for the book. Hey. I'm trying to. And the ones that want this.
So we are going to start on chapter 2. Like I said, FADavis.com. Not FADavis Village, not FADavis Reader.
We can't go through that big, right place.
No.
We just got our name.
Yeah, they said I have already the day, but I did. Yeah, like, I'm already redeemed my access code.
So like,
Awesome, like.
I wanted to gift it to you, like that overlap. Okay. No, other than water in the kitchen too. See, oh, I don't know. All right, where's the sign-in sheet? Thank you.
You start setting your password. No. Yeah, you don't. So long, yeah, I'm not gonna listen to that generator and say, oh. You know, I get a bunch of some ill, nursing ill. Say, fuck, man. Next time, here, Patrick, send me over. So do like I'm like you know
If I mispronounce your name, I apologize and feel free to correct me. I will try to get them all out. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Oh, there are two documents?
No, I had it.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna do that. No, okay. That's meaning. Raina? What is it? Rene, okay. Diana? Diana? Danae, okay. Khadija? Khadija, okay. Carmen. Okay. Sarah. Erica. Okay. Mora. Mariah. Natalie. Dominique. Dominique. Okay. Leah. Callie. Okay. Aaliyah. Alea. Annette. Monet. Did I say it right? Okay. Tatiana. Angelic. Angelique. Okay. Shania. Shania. Letitia. Leticia. Heaven. Sarah. Aaliyah. Amani, not here. Let me go back to the bathroom. You gotta sign in.
Okay.
That's on that.
Here.
Okay. Javon. Okay. Ramona. Jaquela. Jaquila. Martaja? Oh, Martasia. But I'm proud. Did I not call somebody's name? Did I already name? I don't have favorites.
Well, you guys.
I have a favorite daughter because I only have one, but. All right. Yeah. Oh, Ricky. Okay, sorry. Yes, I am.
How do I get it up there?
You gotta sign in.
This is my older, this is my account from my fundamental.
Yeah, it's the same account.
Oh, it's the same time?
Yeah, she goes in. Yeah, so you just gotta enter the access code there.
How about up on that?
There's an email from me.
This one, like this one.
FA Davis text with the access code. Yep,
So copy and paste this?
yep,
Okay.
and it should pop up. Just refresh your page. All right. Okay. So we are going to start chapter 2. We are going to do chemistry of life. If you took this class last semester, you'll notice that it's a lot shorter. That is intentional. Okay, so Okay. You can just say A, B, C, D. What is the difference between organs and tissues? B, right? Huh? All right. So, tissues are groups of cells and organs are types of, or sorry, groups of two or more tissues, right? We're talking in that hierarchy. Learning objectives. If you took this talk with me last night,
What are you talking?
Kartoshka.
Does it mean potato? Bread. Oh no.
My bad. I'll take it. But Kartoshka means potato. Now you guys know a new Russian word. It also happens to be the name of my cat. Kartoshka. That's my husky Torment. But no, I don't know. We lost two of them sooner. Yeah.
Oh.
Kartoshka. Yep. So, why am I talking about Russian in class? Because if I just start speaking Russian to you, which I can't do very well, my party's family is all Russian, so like I can hear it and kind of understand to like the degree where I know they're talking about me, but like I can't really speak Russian. But in order to like talk about some of the things in this packet, right? There's words that you guys aren't going to be familiar with. So sometimes we have to backtrack a little bit. So we're speaking that same language. Okay? But when you go to study, focus on what's in the packet. Okay? If you want to like if you're like looking at the word, so for example, the first page, we asked you what the 6 major elements in the body are, right? If you're like completely blanking on what an element is, go back to the PowerPoint, reread the definition. But you have to find the exam, I'm not going to be like, define an element. I'm not going to do that to you. Okay? So study what's in the packet for your exam. But we are going to talk a little bit more in depth when we go through the PowerPoint. So, starting with this slide. You don't have to refresh your page. No. Don't buy the picture. All right. So, basic structures of life. Everything is matter. When we say matter, it's something that has mass and occupies space. I am matter. You guys are all matter. That table is matter. Air is matter. Even though like we can't really like feel the mass or anything like that, air does have mass. Okay? Matter can be divided into two things. It can be divided into elements and compounds. When we say an element, all it means is that it's a pure substance that cannot be broken down further. So for example, oxygen. Oxygen is never going to become something like hydrogen. It is never going to become nitrogen. It is never going to become silver. Okay? Oxygen is always just oxygen. A compound, on the other hand, that is going to be a combination of two or more elements. So, water is a very stereotypical example. H2O. It's got two hydrogens and one oxygen. What are some other examples of elements?
Potassium,
Mm-hmm.
carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide is a compound.
Oh, because it's two,
Yeah.
right?
So carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, those are compounds. Gold. Gold is an example of an element. Carbon, potassium, sodium. All of that stuff are elements. Okay. There are way more compounds than elements. Now, we do not expect you guys to memorize the periodic table of elements. That is like 200 elements or something like 220. Don't worry about it. We don't expect you guys to be chemists, right? We want you guys to know what chemistry is relevant to the body. So, you have 6 major elements in the body, and we want you guys to be familiar with these 6 major elements. You don't need to know the percentage. Just know their abbreviations. So the first one is going to be oxygen. Okay, the abbreviation is just the first letter for the most part. So oxygen's abbreviation is an O. Right? Carbon. Carbon's abbreviation is a C. Hydrogen. The abbreviation for hydrogen is H. Nitrogen. Nitrogen's abbreviation is an N. Now calcium. C was already taken. So they put Ca. Okay. Phosphorus, P. Okay. So most of these are pretty easy. Another one that you'll see pop up quite a bit, or two that you'll see pop up, like you don't need to memorize the fifth exam, but potassium you're going to see pop up quite a bit. Okay, sodium, Na. Their abbreviations aren't as straightforward as these ones. Iron, you hear about iron, and you talk about religions. Let's do magnesium, stuff like that, right? So you do come across all of these other elements in your body, but the 6 ones that we really want you guys to start with, these ones. Okay? Throughout the rest of the semester, as we come upon them, I'll remind you of the abbreviations, but for right now, we got those.
It's always been one word. Only one.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so looking at atoms. Again, these are your notes. If you don't feel like drawing an atom, I'm not going to try to do that. Keep your space. Okay? You can if you want to, yeah. I put a space there. If you're like, that's not going to help me at all, don't include it. No. So, atoms are the building blocks of everything. Right? We already talked about atoms very briefly. We said that they are the smallest thing. Neutrons. And I have a nice little summary table. So that summary table that's in there, just listen to me for a minute and we'll come back to the summary table. Okay. So at the very center of your atom, you have what's called your nucleus. We're going to see the nucleus, like the word nucleus again, when we talk about cells. It's just the center of the cell, or center of the. You're going to find some of these in the nucleus, some of them are in the outside floating around. So the things that are floating around are just the electrons. The things that are inside the nucleus include your protons and neutrons. Okay. Now, I'm just going to skip ahead to the table because I think the table's better, personally. So, protons are going to be located in that center of the nucleus. Okay. Protons are positive. So P with P. Not positive. Okay. I spelled positive wrong. Right? It's close enough. I don't know if it's right enough, honestly. It kind of looks right. Whatever. So protons are positive. Okay. Neutrons. Neutral. Okay. Neutrons are neutral. Okay. Protons and neutrons are going to be found in the center of the atom. All right. Whereas electrons are found in these things called shells, which are just like the outer area of the atom. Okay. And electrons are the ones that don't rhyme with their charge. Electrons are just negative. Okay. You can include the relative weights if you want to. I'm never going to ask you how much something weighs or anything like that. But last semester we talked a little bit about it, so I still have them in there. But so protons and neutrons found in the nucleus, positive protons, neutral neutrons, Electrons are found in the outer area and they are negative. Okay. Now, if you have 11 positive charges and 11 negative charges, what happens? They're neutral, they cancel out. Okay? So that's that first answer. What is the charge of sodium, for example? So sodium has 11 protons, 11 electrons, right? So it ends up being neutral. Okay, so atoms start out baseline having the equal amount of protons that they do electrons, right? But they're unsatisfied with that number, okay? Well, most of them. What they want to have is called a full electron cloud. Now, you don't need to write this down. It's just to explain some background so when we talk about why bonding happens, you understand. Okay? So, for example, this has 3 electrons. Only 2 fit in this innermost shell. The outermost shell wants to have 8. Okay? So the way that it fills up this outermost shell is it either picks up electrons from another atom or it gets rid of its one, depending, right? So if you only have one atom and you don't want to have, you want to have a full outer shell, it's a lot easier for you to get rid of that 1 electron than it is to pick up 7, right? If you have 7 electrons and you want 8, it's a way easier for you to pick up that 1 electron than it is to get rid of the rest of the 7. So this comes into play when we're talking about bonding. All right, this is that all written out. The protons, neutrons, and what? Electrons. Don't worry about this question. I forgot to take it out. Now, atoms want to have this full outer shell of electrons. The number happens to be 8. You don't need to know the number. Just to explain that, they want to fill up that shell. Okay? Now, in order to fill up that shell, they're going to bond. There are 2 different types of bonds. Well, there's 2 bonds, and then there's a weak attraction. That's called a bond. Okay? So you have ionic bonds, covalent bonds. All right? And the third type of bond we'll talk about in a little bit. Ionic bonds. Okay? Ionic bonds happen when an electron is transferred. Okay, so that first fill in the blank, write transferred. I just like the word transferred better than moves because everything is moving in your body all the time, right? So when an electron is transferred from one atom to another, right? So for example, you have sodium, which has 1 electron in its outermost shell, okay? It wants to have 8. Then you have chlorine, which has 7 to start in its outermost shell, but it wants to have 8. So sodium's I could care less. It's like when you have a garage sale because you're just trying to get rid of a bunch of junk that you found in your house, but you just don't want to stick it on the street. So somebody comes by and they're like, "Can I buy this?" And you're like, "Yeah, you can have it for a quarter." Right? You can just have it. I don't care. Right? But chlorine, on the other hand, super aggressive. It really, really wants that electron. So it just takes it. Okay? Now, if you have more protons than you do electrons, what happens? Protons, if you have more protons, positive, right? Because protons are positively charged. Same thing happens if you have more well, not the same thing, but you have that imbalance between the protons and electrons now. So chlorine is going to be negative. Okay? So for those fill in the blanks, the electrical charge of the atom then changes from neutral to become either negative or positive. Let's see. Okay? So, what this means is they are now charged. Once they are charged atoms, they are called ions. Hence the word ionic bond. Okay? So these charged particles are called ions. So that's that first paragraph up here. Now, when you dissolve these things in water, okay, so first of all, these are attracted to one another, right? Just like magnets attract, you have the 2 opposite poles of magnets. Same thing with your ions, right? You have your positively charged sodium You have your negatively charged chloride. They are gonna stick together. Okay? Sodium chloride. Does anyone know what it is? Any chance? What? Sodium chloride.
And then,
Yeah, what is it? Table salt. It's table salt. Now you can impress everybody at dinner parties. Right? Bring up chemistry, whatever you want to. Can you pass the sodium chloride? It's just table salt. So when you put table salt in water, what happens to it? Dissolves, right? Same thing. So when it is dissolved in water, those ionic bonds are going to break between the sodium and the chloride. Okay. If you put enough salt in water, it is capable of conducting electricity. So this is going to be called electrolytes. All right. So when you hear like Gatorade or whatever saying that it's not electrolytes or like Pedialyte or whatever, right? This is the stuff they're talking about. There's just compounds dissolved in it, like salts or whatever it might be. Okay. So they are going to ionize in water and call that they once they are able to conduct electricity, they are called electrolytes. So chemistry for me is every day. So if you were with us last semester, we didn't spend as much time focusing on electrolytes and ions, but like I said, this semester we're trying to like integrate more with sons. Electrolytes and ions come up a lot in nursing practice, so we're spending a little bit more time on them. Now, if an atom loses an electron, okay, something like that. Okay, an atom at baseline has an equal number of electrons and protons, right? So it is what?
neutral.
Neutral. Okay. If you lose an electron, electrons are what kind of charge?
Negative.
Negative. So if you lose that electron, your atom now has more or less protons than it does electrons. More protons than it does electrons. Okay. Which means it is positively charged because you lost that electron. Okay. So an atom is typically neutral because the number of electrons which are negatively charged equals the number of protons which are positively charged. When the electron is now lost, the atom has more protons than electrons, therefore the atom is positive. Okay, more positive. A positively charged ion is called a cation. The way that I remember this, cations are positive. Like a little cat claw. Okay. So cations are positive. All right. Now, if an atom is going to gain an electron, okay, does the atom have more or less protons?
Less.
Less protons than it does electrons. So it is what?
Negative.
Negative. A negatively charged ion is called an anion. Okay. Anions sound like onions. Onions make you cry. Anything that makes you cry is negative. Okay. If you don't want to remember both of the whatevers, pick your favorite one. The other one is anion or cation. Okay. Whichever you prefer. I like the cation one, but yeah. I'm not trying to do.
What you say?
All right. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the other types of bonds briefly. Okay, they're not as important in nursing practice, so we're kind of just gonna. All right, so covalent bonds. Now we talked about sodium and chloride, right? Sodium really wants to get rid of its electron. Chlorine really wants to hold on to it. Okay, but sometimes you have atoms that are like, you know, I don't want to take it over entirely by myself, but like I do need to like fill up. So they end up sharing. Okay. So covalent bonds are formed when two atoms share pairs of electrons. Okay. So covalent, co-pairing. They are co-parenting those electrons they are sharing. All right. So something like carbon dioxide. Carbon's not particularly aggressive. Oxygen's not particularly aggressive. So they just share it. Okay. The last thing we're going to talk about are hydrogen bonds. So in order to get there, this was a gas station puppy that I got in grad school. Little Miss Gemma. This was my roommate's dog, Mance. He was a Great Pyrenees. All right. Gemma was about, I think, 4 pounds when I got her, and Mance was clearly right. Gemma's unfortunately since passed, but they used to play tug of war quite a bit. Okay. What do you think happened when they played tug of war?
The little lost, of course.
Exactly, right? Big one just dragged her around. Like, don't get me wrong, she was like down for the get down. She used to like bring it, you can see her like down here. I used to have like the video, but it doesn't like play unengagedly. But like he just literally like dragged her around the park. Like they're playing tug of war, but like really Nance is playing tug of war. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with some atoms that are doing this polar or this covalent bonding. Okay. Sometimes the bigger atom is going to pull a lot more than the smaller atom. So, and sometimes they pull equally. Okay. So what this does is it like creates an uneven distribution of those electrons. Like one parent has the electrons way more often than the other. Okay. So because you have that unequal distribution, for example, oxygen is way bigger than hydrogen. Okay, so oxygen is holding onto those electrons way more than hydrogen. Okay. So oxygen has a partial negative, hydrogen has a partial positive. Like oxygen hasn't taken those electrons entirely, so it's not a full negative, but it is more negatively charged than hydrogen. So again, just like in ionic bonds, right? Those negatives are going to be attracted to hydrogens. Okay. So it ends up creating this hydrogen bond. It does not create a new molecule, it just makes things stick together. So hydrogen bonds are a weak attraction between a slightly positive hydrogen atom and a partially negative, I flipped one of these. Okay. So partially positive hydrogen and a partially negative oxygen. Okay. Well, you can put like a little plus sign. So this is why you get like a lot of different important things in that. Like water sticks to itself is all I'm trying to say. Okay. That's the point behind hydrogen bonds. Water likes to stick to itself. Now, your body is going to be like 50% or more pure water. Okay. It's a little bit different for males and females. I think men have a higher body water percentage, while women have a higher body fat percentage. So let me get the Shannon stick in a bunch of areas. So water is more than 50% of your body. You don't need to know the exact percentages. Right? It's going to be found in cells, tissues, organs, essential for survival, helps regulate that body temperature, lubricates and cushions joints. It's responsible for a bunch of things, right? Water is important. They tell you to drink a bunch of water. I feel like you drink more water if we're going to do anything or anywhere else. So what percentage? 50% or more. Okay. Mental health theme. Sodium chloride, sodium when it's just water explodes. Chlorine, they used to use chlorine chlorine gas in World War One. Put them together, make salt. So. But we're not gonna take a break because the way timing works out. What happens when one atom transfers? C, ionic bonds. Right? So anytime you see ionic transfer. Okay, that transfer creates that charge. Which one of these shares? Covalent, coparent. And which one of these happens between water molecules? Hydrogen.
Question.
Mhm.
So your ionic, your chemical bond is just basically your ionic bonds?
All three of these are examples of chemical bonds
Okay, that's what I was wondering. But just the type.
between water. BTWN means between. That's my abbreviation for it. Sorry.
No, you write this real quick.
Okay. Yep.
That's what.
Okay. I'm gonna give you guys a chance to write this down. But I'm gonna try my best. Yeah.
I'm just making those because I'm sitting here.
So just so you guys know, I usually, so in all my other classes, they have funds like right after. So I let them all out like 10 minutes early and like, I'm gonna do the same thing for you guys just because like, they're tired. 10 minutes early, not 20 minutes, not 30. You're not an hour. This is, yeah. Okay, so what part can you get? Not just have every day. Oh, and I'm getting higher world. You're coming. I really want to get. It's all like the last few months. Right. I'm just me on the bird, but now they do how much. Right. So, that was time. So, I got one. So, let's come to our. I like, I'm definitely like this. Thank you. Right, so we have. Now you have those are departing. The most are making one. That's not worrying. That's right. That's right. She was something. Okay, chapter we're not covering today. It's just so you have it for Thursday. Okay. We already talked. No. Okay. So. Now we're going to talk about energy and body and where it comes from. So, the other reason why bonds are important in chemistry, right? They are going to store energy. It's like if you go to a bank, right? You're in a deposit for some money. At some point, you need to take it out. Same thing with energy. At some point, you need to store that energy. Okay? And then at other points, you need to use it. Okay? So, energy is going to be stored in bonds of molecules. Okay? So, stored in bonds.
Wait.
No, we're still on chapter 2.
Okay, let's look at it.
You just,
You know,
like, the
you're doing a little bit. That's a dark, right? That's all you get.
So energy is stored in bonds of molecules. So those things we just talked about making. Okay? You have two types of energies. You have two types of energies. You have potential energy. It's not doing anything yet. You just have the potential to do something. Right? You guys aren't nurses yet. But you have the potential to be nurses, right? We're working on being nurses. So, energy is stored in the bonds of molecules. This is potential energy. So, stored energy is potential energy. Okay? So, you can write that for your definition. Stored energy. Okay? It's there, it's ready to go, but it's not doing anything yet. When you need to use that energy, that is kinetic energy. Somebody last semester used energy in action, and I thought it was a really good summary. Okay, so energy in action. So if you think about like a bow and arrow analogy, right? You pull the bow back, the bow is like really tight, it's ready to go, but it's not like moving the arrow yet, right? When that arrow is moving, it is in action. So that is that kinetic energy. Okay. The main molecule that your body uses to store this energy is going to be something called ATP. Okay. So ATP, what is it? Stores energy. Okay. Or sorry, what is it? What is it? It's a nucleotide. What does it do? Stores energy. Okay. Okay, so we got like
How it's made, how it's made, or what not.
it's on the next slide. I was just giving everybody a chance to write this. So ATP, okay. Now, like we said, it's stored in bond, right? ATP, the reason it's called that is it has these three phosphates. So triphosphate, you don't need to know that. The only point that I'm trying to put out. Okay, what happens is you take food in, that food gets converted into this bond. Okay, so how is it made? Storing energy from food in the bond. Okay. All it does, you guys don't need to know the exact mechanics of it or anything like that. Okay. All you need to know, it gets made from your food. That's it. Okay. We'll talk about where it's made and everything in chapter 3. Okay. Okay, real quick, because I want to explain this in person. I need 3 volunteers. 1, 2, 3, come up here. Or actually, I only need 2. See, I lied. I only need 2. Okay. Oh wait. No, I need 4. I can't do that. 1, 2, 3, and 1 more. 4. Great. Okay. So I'm gonna skip through We'll come back to metabolism and all of that stuff. Okay, so we're gonna talk about chemical reactions real quick. Okay, synthesis reaction. I want you two guys to hold hands. You guys just made a synthesis reaction. Okay? That's it. New bond formed. In order to make that new bond, energy gets used. Right? You're like gluing things together, you use glue. Decomposition, break apart. That's a decomposition reaction. Two things break up. This is why I'm important. So you two stand here. You two stand here. You two hold hands, you two hold hands. Exchange reactions, you two are going to switch places. Okay? Were bonds broken or were they made?
They were exchanged.
Oh, both broken and made.
What?
So that is going to be exchange. So you are both using energy and you are releasing it.
That'll be good.
Okay? That's all you need this work. I just like to have everybody move around because I feel like, I don't know, it solidifies it. Okay? So synthesis, two things come together. You use energy, like it uses decomposition, breaks apart, exchange, does both. All right. That's all I have for you guys today. We'll leave off there. I will see you guys Thursday online. I will not have a baby this time. No teaching assistant. Thank you for bearing with me last week. Huh? Yes. Oh my God. Oh. Yeah. Oh, so that's Raven. Raven is my lab. Raven is my trustee. I have a lot of it. We have chapter 1, students, and they're not going to section. I've been here. Okay, so hold on 1 second, I'll go back. How did she get it? And okay, hold on. I'll show you guys on class on Thursday morning. Okay. I like check myself out, so yeah. Yeah. Oh.